Hey guys, welcome to the Health Life Spirituality Podcast, a show all about well-being and your spiritual self. I'm your host, Liam Gunderson. In today's episode of the podcast, we are going to be talking about anger. More specifically, how you can deal with your anger and what this anger is really trying to tell you. So, the first part we're going to go into is how to let out your anger. This is something that a lot of people struggle with, myself included, but I've developed some ways which I feel can help a lot. My first suggestion is to do some physical activity. So that could be running, lifting weights, anything you do for physical exercise. I find that running helps the most though, because you can really do it until you're done and get out all of your anger. So all of that being said, it's important not to use physical exercise such as punching something, hitting something. Nothing violent. The reason it is because when you react violently to your anger, you train your brain to be violent. That means that whenever you're angry, your brain associates it with violence. And that's not healthy. When you're angry, you don't want to take that out violently because that's not going to help anybody, least of all yourself. It's only going to serve to make other people upset with you, and it's going to cause a lot of problems for you. Anger is not always just anger. And what I mean by that is that there's often many different emotions lying underneath the surface. That could be anything like shame, frustration, irritation, any emotion that we often construe as anger. Because you see, anger is like this umbrella term that can encompass so many different feelings, but they're all different, and it's important to learn to recognize their differences. That way you can find out what your anger is trying to tell you. An example of this is if you feel angry towards your family members. This could be just because they're loud, or you feel as though they're annoying. What you're really feeling isn't anger, it's really irritation, maybe frustration. And it's important to identify that so you can take measures to cope with that. Because simply labeling it as anger will not really do anything. So for this example, being angry with your family because they're too loud, we're going to talk about some different ways you could cope with that. So generally, people will yell at them or tell them to shut up, but that won't work because that'll only contribute to the problem. The way that you can really deal with this is by changing your own environment. You can't expect them to change, so you have to do it. For example, you could go for a walk. You could take out the dog. It's just something that you can do to get away. Or it could even be only mentally getting away, like listening to music or reading a book. Reading a book is one of my favorite ways to escape from my environment. So it's really important to do these things to get to know your anger. Because once you know it, you can really deal with it. If you don't understand it, if you aren't able to connect with it, you're not going to be able to really cope with it. It's always going to be there until you learn more about it. Another effective way of learning more about your anger is by meditating on it. You can ask your anger, what do you really want? What's going on? And don't judge it, just find out what it needs. I found that to be very helpful in identifying the type of anger, frustration, irritation, etc. So, in this podcast episode, I've given you some ways that you can deal with anger, as well as some tricks to learn about your anger and find out what it really wants. So you should go try them out for yourself and see if they work. Of course, they're just suggestions, so make sure you expand on them and experiment with them for yourself. Thank you guys so much for watching, or listening, I guess. Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode, and I will see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to be alerted of future episodes, and don't forget to check out my blog at healthlifespirituality.com for more. Till next time, peace.